Hey there, folks. Welcome to today's episode of the Strategy and Leadership Podcast. My guest today is Andrew Temte, who is the author of Balancing Act and the Balance Business. He's the former CEO at Kaplan Professional and the founder at Skills Owl LLC. Andrew, how's it going today?
Things are just fantastic here in western Wisconsin. Can't complain at all.
Awesome. I love it. I was in Wisconsin not too long ago, and when I came back, now I have an addiction to cheese curds for the squeakiness of them. So Wisconsin has a fun place in my heart, and that's not just the cheese that's stuck there, but that's another story. Andrew, you've got a really cool career. You're working on a lot of very neat things. I gave a little bit of glimpse of your bio, but why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about who you are and get into some questions.
Right. Well, I'm a high school dropout. I dropped out of high school in the 11th grade, which is always a surprise for people to hear. I like to lead with that because it gives folks an indication that your failures do not define you. And as long as we're learning from them and continuing to move forward. I'm a musician, grew up as in a very musical family, PhD in finance from the University of Iowa, so I'm an Iowa Hawkeye, and I lived my professional career with one foot firmly planted in higher education and the other foot firmly planted in professional education, all things licensures, designations, and certifications. So I'm all about alternative pathways into the world of work, the future of work, the reskilling revolution. That's just a snippet about me.
Awesome. I love that. Well, it's interesting, the dichotomy between having, we'll call it no high school completed education and dedicating your life to supporting other folks being successful. Why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about Kaplan as an organization and what are some of the things that kept you busy for 20 plus years?
Yeah, so I came to Kaplan as the product of acquisition, the company that my mentor Carl Swayzer and I started back in 1990 to prepare individuals to take and pass the Chartered Financial Analyst exam. Kaplan purchased that from us back in 1999. My mentor Carl retired at that time, and I continued on with Kaplan and took on various parts of their professional education and higher education portfolio through the years. So I did everything from run a small college in New Hampshire for a time. I was the president of the College of Business and Technology for what is now Purdue Global, what used to be Kaplan University. And just bolted onto my portfolio professional education assets all around the world. So everything from real estate licensing to insurance licensing, securities licensing, the CFP credentials, CPA. So accountants, insurance agents, financial professionals. That was the world that I led.
That's wild. So if you think of, like education, interesting, my parents are educators and I work with a lot of educators in our strategic planning practice, but look at the world of skills development and training. And, if you think of like what were the skills that were in demand 10, 20 years ago are very different than the skills that are going to be in demand in the future. And so I guess my first question here is, as you look at, both your former life and your current life, and you look at the workforce demands now, how do you view, I guess, the importance of education and probably the balance between formal education and, kind of work readiness, the actual skills that you need? And then how do you see the future of what's going to be needed to support future businesses, future leaders, and so on?
Yeah, so it's a lot to unpack, as they say. But colleges and universities have historically done a pretty good job of getting students ready for the world of work. And I qualify that with, in air quotes, a pretty good job, because if you look at CEO and COO surveys about the job readiness of college grads. They rate college grads as not being ready at all for the world of work. And then if you interview provosts and college presidents, they will tell you that all of their students are job ready. I served for a brief period on World Economic Forum's reskilling consortium. They have a whole education pillar that I was serving to help them on, and it is obvious that we face a reskilling challenge on a global basis. World Economic Forum estimates that up to 1 billion of the 8 billion people on this planet will need to be reskilled over the next 10 years. Well, you asked a question about what are the skill needs today relative to the past. And one of the significant shifts that that we've really all seen is a shift toward human skill, or what some call soft skills. I'm on a crusade to get rid of the term soft skills, because there's really nothing soft about it. They're some of the hardest skills that you can learn. But the future of work will require much less technical training. You'll still need to know the technical aspects of your job, of course, but with the rise of artificial intelligence, natural language processing engines, we're going to have these awesome interns and fantastic assistants all around us. And meaning the computers. And what do we have to bring to the world of work but our human selves? So that's really a shift that I have personally made throughout my career. I started as much more of a directive, thou shalt kind of a manager, and transformed into a leader that recognizes that our emotional intelligence toolkit is what is really going to carry all of us into the future. I could go on and on about alternative pathways into the world of work, but I'll take a breath and see if you've got a clarifying question to ask.
Well, I've got a couple, but my first one was going to be, have you found an alternative word to soft skills?
I call it human skill. We are humans. There's an entire portfolio of skills that we need to adopt and continually refine. First and foremost is compassion, which is empathy plus the willingness and ability to do something about it. So I talk a lot about compassionate leadership. It doesn't mean that you're soft and you're squishy and you let everything slide, but it means that you can place yourself, you can into the situation, you can understand the situation that somebody else is in, and you are willing to do something about it, which is really the hallmark of a highly effective leader. So I went on a little past your question there.
That's great. Well, because it's like how I wrote it. And so our company, we hire strategic planning facilitators, and thinking about like there's the what you do and how you do it, and the how you do it is as important, if not more important, than the what you do, because like you said, you could train for that. But one of the things that I couldn't help but think of, and you can tell me if this is on point or not. So we're recording this in 2024. The technological transformation has been clipping along for the past couple of years, and it's kind of getting at a precipice. And as I look at the world of skills and training and all of that stuff, there are still those technical components where we haven't quite mastered them. right? There's so much that we're going through. And what I heard you say was, yes, in the future there will be full adoption to this, artificial intelligence, natural learning models, et cetera, et cetera. But then there's still like this, our current skills. And to me, there occurs as a chasm of folks that do need that reskilling to be able to do that. And I kind of think of people that are maybe 40 to 50 or 50 to 60 that might be in a job transition and find themselves in a hard place. And my aunt, for example, she's a professor of psychology at a university close by, and she'd been doing her job for however long, took her a long time to get her degree. But when Zoom came in, that was really hard for her. And she had a really hard time adapting her hard skills and soft skills, human skills, to that world, because it was a whole new set of skill set coming off doing her doctorate, 10 or 15 years. And so how do you view that, both for society as a whole, and then potentially recognizing that there are managers and leaders, and maybe call it mid-senior, that haven't quite got it to the top where they can sit back and coast, and they still need to develop that next set of skills to take that next leap? What do you say to them?
Yeah, so I say be a lifelong learner. Commit to lifelong learning. The success of humans in the future world of work demands, it's an imperative that we are always learning, always moving forward. You used a phrase, getting to a point where one can coast. Very, very specifically. And, I have a very visceral reaction to that, because in this world, with the speed of change, once you start to coast, the world is going to plow you over. It's not just going to gently nudge you out of the way. It's going to grind you up and spit you out. You are going to literally have no place. So continuing to work on all of the human skill that we were talking about before, but not necessarily developing expertise in things like coding and augmented reality and virtual reality systems, etc. But you have to have some degree of acumen or literacy in those items. And this is why I tell everybody that will listen to me to take some coding classes, understand how computer programs are built, take some mathematical logic courses, certainly increase your financial and your business acumen, because, and the reason I talk about the acumen level is so that you can be in that meeting with, you're a 50-something in a meeting with a bunch of 20-somethings, and you'll be able to understand what everybody's talking about, instead of, I don't understand all that newfangled technology. I'm way past that. No, you've got to keep up with your skill. And again, the second you say, no, I'm done learning, it's over.
So one of the things, I can't thank you for the visceral reaction, your honesty, because I agree. And I mean, heck, I was working through some like SEO marketing stuff, and I was like, okay, this is on like evergreen mode. And sure enough, like I kind of like took my eye off the ball, and I was like, oh dang, like, we're not ranked as highly for that. So I won't shout out the keywords so we get some SEO juice. But just what I couldn't help but like wonder as I say, okay, I think about this in terms of personal learning, and then there's like organizational learning. And the burden of learning on the individual. What do you do in your like non-day job, night times, weekends, etc. to do that? And then I think of like, what can organizations and leaders do to imbue knowledge and support training and development? And what I hear is it's not just like the job training and development, it's the external future job training and skills. And then the kind of third intersection I have that around that is the professional certification, like getting letters behind your name. And having worked in with higher education and working with like technical people, and saying like, hey, like the perceived value And so I'm curious on your thoughts on this when there's like, hey, the individual's value of letter behind your name, but then actually what those letters behind your name actually allow you to do, whether it's a contextual shift, whether that's hard skills or soft skills. So I guess my three questions I asked all at the same time. How do you view the burden on an individual, and what should people do to incorporate that? From an organizational perspective, how do leaders balance training for applicable skills versus future skills? And then what are your thoughts on like technical certifications in the future? And you can choose any one of those three. Or
Yeah, well, let's. They're laid out very very nicely. So let's start with the individual. From my perspective, the individual's responsibility is to just become perpetually curious. We are just not curious enough. We don't ask why nearly enough. We get into patterns and we just keep doing the same thing, and that's comfortable. As human beings, we like to be comfortable, and we dislike discomfort. We avoid it at all costs. And the thing that everybody's got to remember is that learning is the process of becoming purposefully uncomfortable and then working oneself back to some status quo, some new, improved version of oneself. So that is just rinse and repeat over and over again throughout one's life. And it is that curiosity which is the most important driver. Now, let's talk about the responsibility of corporations. I'll start my comments off saying I hate the annual performance review. And hate is a very strong word, but annual performance reviews, leaders and managers don't know how to do them. Individual contributors show up for performance reviews all nervous. Nobody really gets anything out of the performance review. So in my books, I talk about weaving feedback and performance evaluation into the flow of work so that you can use the time and the energy that's all wrapped around the annual performance review, typically at the end of the fiscal or calendar year for a company, and turn that into a skills review. Because the leader and the leader and the manager, presumably, they've got a strategic plan that you and your firm help them work through. They then have goals that are all wrapped around that strategic plan, and there is a set of skills there is a skills map that they need to develop so that their human capital can actually execute on the goals and the strategic plan that's been created. Well, each individual on a team comes to the table with a current portfolio of skills. And on a higher order, competencies, which are skills, knowledge, abilities, and attitudes all bundled together. But if we just talk about skills, everybody comes to the table with a portfolio of skills. Now, then the individuals all come together at the team level. And when's the last time as a leader or manager that you mapped the skills that you need to execute on all these great goals that you just dreamt up, and the actual skill profile of your team and your team members? So the annual performance review should get switched around so that is done in the flow of work. And once a year at least, leaders and managers should be sitting down with their people and saying, look, Susie, I've been providing you feedback all year. This is where we're going, and this is where I see you fitting, and here's the gap between your current skill set and what you are going to need as your skill portfolio to be successful with us in the future. And here are the learning modules, both formal and experiential and informal, that we are going to work on together to get you from here to there, so that we're not firing a bunch of people, trying to rehire for new skills, and then we're not quite sure what we're going to get out of that formula. We've seen over and over and over again that really doesn't work, right? So build the people that you've already got. Put the reskilling, the upskilling plans formally into your strategic plan. In my second book, chapter number 6 is on learning and coaching, and it's chapter number 6 for a reason, because too few businesses have a formal plan for learning. So I'm going to stop there before I get to the credentialing, because that was about 3 minutes and probably way too long.
No, that was perfect. No, I really like it. And what I find it interesting is, looking at the process and saying, hey, I don't want to say arbitrarily assessing skills and competencies, but you're doing it kind of in a vacuum. You're looking at the person versus like, hey, what are the skills? Like, what is the skills gap to get us to where we wanted to go? And if we already had all the skills in-house, we probably would have attained our goals anyways. So like, hey, is it an execution thing, tasks or projects, or is it a people competency thing? And it's the balance of the two to effectively resource and support the resourcing of skills, not just the resourcing of projects, because that's like the breadth that's needed to get there. Okay, because we are running low on time, couple minutes on certificationing, and then I got one more question for you.
Yeah, so certifications are awesome in general. There are many certs out there, and we talked about the corporation and the individual. This is where the corporation and the individual really need to come together. Is pursuing a certification going to help me, the individual, with my future career aspirations? Is it going to open doors for me, employment doors that I otherwise would not have had? That's one question the individual has to ask. And then the corporation has to ask that skill gap question. If I get more of my people certified in a particular way, then will that help me close a skill gap? Now, I've spent most of my professional career in the certification game, and one of the things that we have to figure out is the transferability of skill acquisition on the job within company X to company Y, so that an individual, what they learn on the job gets validated by the employer, and then there is a trust certificate that goes along with that, so that when they leave, they don't have to start all over again with their next employer. And that is the original reason why certifications are out there, is that transferability. But so much learning happens in the job that we need new ways to codify that and to be able to transfer that knowledge across corporate boundaries.
When something is so stupidly obvious that you're dumbfounded by it, as you can tell by my face right now, that I kind of forgot about the fact that that's what a certification is supposed to do. It's like a promissory note of skills and competencies. Right. And then I think people are looking at the value of a degree, for example, and it's okay, well, what is that degree? And I think that where it gets muddled is when people have a degree in criminology or a degree in sociology or soft stuff. It's hey, how does that transfer or apply when you have a bachelor's degree or bachelor's or MBA or whatever? It's well, it should teach you that you can do the thing. But I think where certain employers, and this is a judgment on my side, is it's taught you to regurgitate versus actually having the competencies, and that the LinkedIn certification isn't quite enough to prove that. So remembering what a certification is for, making sure that it's transferable and usable. Okay, I have maybe one more question, and then I will get you to tell folks about where they can connect with you and where they can get your book. What has playing music for 20 years taught you about learning and skills development? And by the way, I don't know what instrument you play. And I don't know if you play multiple ones.
So I'm primarily a singer. So I'm the front man for my band, The Remainders. I'm a rock and roller, and I also play the electric and acoustic guitars. So that's my background. Music is mathematics.
I was going to ask if the Remainders was a math joke or not, and if it is,
it is. Our logo is R5, so there is a long division answer to that question, but we won't go there. But music is mathematics. Music is therapy. Music is it is the soul. It is an entrance into the soul for so many people. And music has taught me to relax. It has taught me persistence because it is the process of learning. It has allowed me to really reinforce my lifelong learning path. So many things about music are beneficial. So if you're a leader, you're listening to this, and you gave up music 15 years ago to be a leader, please pick up I don't care if it's the cello or the piccolo, pick it back up and start noodling around again. You'll just be amazed at the doors of your mind that open up and how much happier you can be as a result.
Sweet. I love that. I've got a keyboard that I started dusting off during the kind of COVID break, and it teaches you have to learn something. Like it's learning, it's skill building, and then for your brain to turn off so that you're not doing all of the rest of the stuff at once. Andrew, where can people connect with you? Where can they pick up your book, Balancing Act, or The Balance Business, and where can they learn more about the work that you do, up to and including your podcast around musings?
Yeah, so we are, everything is at andrewtemte.com, ANDREWTEMTE.com. The books are out at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, anywhere books are sold. We're out on YouTube, we're out on Facebook. You can find me just about anywhere. So thank you, Anthony, for having me on the show.
It's been my pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me. And folks, my guest today, Andrew Temte, who is the author of Balancing Act, The Balanced Business, former CEO of Kaplan Professional, and founder of Skills Owl. Plus, he's the front man of The Remainders, which, whichever way you want to put that in order. So, Andrew, thanks for being here today. Folks, one of my biggest takeaways from today is just your learning speed, and is it faster or slower than the speed of change? And if you're standing still, that speed of change is going to railroad you. And so incorporating any growth, any development, any learning, whether that's on-the-job training, whether that's human skills or soft skills, or whether that's playing the piccolo, your ability to, stay on top of it will determine your success in the future, I believe. So part of being curious is wondering what's next on the Strategy and Leadership Podcast. So be sure to subscribe. And I hope you enjoyed today as a means of contributing to your learning. I certainly did. So Andrew, thanks again for being here. It's been a pleasure. And folks, once again, my name's Anthony Taylor. This has been the Strategy and Leadership Podcast. I appreciate you. And I'll catch you next time.